Jerry Jones just lit another match, and this one is landing right in the middle of a very sensitive pile of dry grass for Cowboys Nation. Because when the guy who is supposed to be steering the ship starts telling one of your key players that he should ditch his agent and talk straight to him instead, that is not just a random quote. That is a giant flashing sign that says there is a deeper problem here. And that is exactly why this whole George Pickens situation matters so much. It is not just about one comment. It is about the way this franchise keeps doing business, and the way Jerry keeps making it harder than it needs to be. Think about how wild that sounds for a second. A player hires an agent because the agent is supposed to handle the business side. That is the whole point. The player handles the football, the agent handles the negotiation. That separation exists for a reason, and it exists because most players do not want to spend their lives in contract trenches when they should be focused on playing at a high level. So when Jerry sits there and basically tells George Pickens that he would make more money if he just got rid of his agent and dealt directly with Jerry, that should set off alarms immediately. Not because Jerry is suddenly some cartoon villain, but because it shows how deeply he still believes he can outmaneuver everybody with old-school charm and pressure. That might have worked in another era. Maybe. But this is not that era. And Cowboys Nation knows it. The league has changed. The business has changed. The players have changed. Even the agents have changed. And yet Jerry keeps sounding like he is trying to settle modern negotiations with a handshake, a wink, and a little family-style guilt trip. That is where the problem lives. It is not just that the quote sounds arrogant. It is that it sounds disconnected from how these deals actually get done now. And if you are George Pickens, put yourself in his shoes for a second. You are trying to navigate one of the biggest financial moments of your life. The person on the other side of the table wants to pay you less, and that same person is telling you to remove the one guy whose entire job is to protect your interests. How does that not raise a red flag? How does that not make you pause and think, hold up, why are you trying to weaken my side before the negotiation even really starts? That is exactly why this is more than just Jerry being Jerry. This is about trust, leverage, and whether the Cowboys are actually creating an environment where players feel respected. And that is where the frustration really starts to boil over for me, because this is not some isolated blunder. Cowboys fans have seen this movie before. We have heard the speeches. We have heard the confidence. We have heard the "we'll figure it out" energy. But then when the time comes to move with clarity, it turns into a mess of mixed messages and unnecessary drama. So let me ask you this right now, because I want to know where Cowboys Nation stands on this one. Do you think Jerry crossed the line by talking about Pickens' agent like that? Or do you think this is just Jerry being Jerry and people are overreacting? Drop that in the comments. And before we keep rolling, make sure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on, because this is the kind of Cowboys coverage that keeps going when the headlines get ugly. If you are already riding with Cowboys Nation, hit that like button right now and help push this video out to more fans who are tired of the same front office chaos. Now here is where things start to tighten up around the George Pickens situation, because what Jerry said is one thing, but what the Cowboys are actually planning to do might be even more frustrating if you are looking at this long term. When you really break it down, this does not look like a team that is aggressively trying to lock in a key piece of its future. It looks like a team that is perfectly comfortable dragging this thing out, and that is where the tension starts building. You heard the comments about the timeline, and it did not exactly scream urgency. It sounded more like, we will let this play itself out. And when you hear that, you already know what that usually means in Cowboys terms. It means the franchise tag is sitting right there like a safety net, and instead of solving the problem now, the plan is to delay it. That might make sense on paper. It might even be part of a calculated strategy. But from the outside looking in, especially if you are a player, it does not feel like commitment. It feels like hesitation. Because let's be real about this. If the Cowboys truly saw George Pickens as a cornerstone piece, if they truly wanted to send a message that he is part of the long-term vision, the cleanest way to do that is to get a deal done early. Avoid the drama. Avoid the speculation. Avoid the risk of things going sideways. But instead, what we are seeing is the possibility of a year on the franchise tag, followed by another tag, and then maybe a deal or maybe a trade. That is not stability. That is a ticking clock. And that kind of approach has ripple effects. It is not just about Pickens. Other players see it. Agents definitely see it. Around the league, people start forming opinions about how the Cowboys handle their business. And when those opinions lean toward they will drag this out or they are hard to negotiate with, that can quietly hurt you when it comes to future deals. That is how reputations are built, and not always in a good way. Now flip it back to the fan perspective, because this is where it really hits home. You want clarity, you want direction, you want to feel like the team has a plan and is executing it with confidence. Instead, you are getting a situation where one of your biggest question marks is still hanging in the air, and the tone coming from the top does not exactly calm anybody down. It almost feels like the Cowboys are comfortable living in this gray area, and that is a dangerous place to stay too long in the NFL. And here is the part that makes it even tougher to swallow. This is not happening in a vacuum. This is happening while expectations are high, while the pressure is always on, and while every move gets dissected by Cowboys Nation and the entire league. So when you combine the comments about the agent with the lack of urgency on a deal, it starts to paint a picture that is hard to ignore. A picture of a front office that might be overcomplicating something that should be straightforward. So let me throw this one to you, because this is where it gets interesting. If you are running this team, are you locking Pickens up right now and removing all the doubt? Or are you okay letting this play out with the franchise tag and seeing how it unfolds? Drop your take in the comments, because this is one of those decisions that can age really well or really badly depending on how it plays out. And if you are feeling the frustration, if you are sitting there thinking this team needs to start making cleaner, smarter moves, hit that like button and show it. That is how we keep these conversations going strong for Cowboys Nation. And if you want to go even further and support the channel, this is your locker room moment. Like, hype the video or drop a super thanks if you are riding with us. That support keeps this channel moving, keeps the content coming, and keeps you locked in all the way to the final second. Because we are not done yet. And what comes next might be the clearest pattern of all when it comes to Jerry and the way this team is being run. Now let's widen the lens, because if you thought this was just about contracts and negotiations, this is where the pattern really starts to reveal itself. This is not just about George Pickens. This is about how decisions are being made across the board, and whether those decisions are actually aligned with what players are asking for. And the fastest way to see that disconnect is to look at what is happening inside AT&T Stadium. Start with the turf versus grass conversation. This one has been simmering for a while, and it keeps coming back because the players keep bringing it up. Around the league, you hear it constantly. Players prefer grass. They feel it is safer. They feel it reduces certain types of injuries. And even if you want to debate the data or question how definitive that science is, there is something you cannot ignore. The players themselves are telling you what they want, loudly, repeatedly. And yet Jerry's stance is firm. He talks about flexibility. He talks about economics. He talks about how the business side of things benefits everyone, including the players. But here is where that argument starts to fall apart for a lot of fans. Because if the people actually putting their bodies on the line are asking for a change, and the response is essentially, this works better, for the business, it starts to feel like priorities are not lining up the way they should. That is where frustration turns into something deeper. Because this is not just a disagreement over field surface. This is about trust. It is about whether players feel heard. It is about whether the organization is willing to adjust when the people on the field are raising concerns. And when the answer keeps coming back, players are asking for one thing, and the response from the top leans in a different direction. So now I want to hear from you again, because this is where Cowboys Nation always brings the real perspective. Where do you stand on this? If it costs more money, if it requires changes, if it takes effort, do you think the Cowboys should move to grass full-time if that is what the players want? Or do you side with Jerry and believe the current setup is fine? Drop your vote in the comments, because this one always sparks a real debate. And if you are watching this thinking the players deserve better conditions, better communication, and better alignment from the front office, hit that like button and let that be heard. This is how we push these conversations forward as a fan base. And if you want to go the extra mile for the channel, this is another moment where you can step up in the locker room. Hit that hype, drop a super thanks, and show that Cowboys Nation is locked in all the way through. Because we have one more layer to peel back, and this last part might be the one that ties everything together and really answers the question a lot of fans are starting to ask. Is this just a series of isolated issues, or is this the real Jerry problem holding this team back? And now we get to the part that really brings everything together, because when you stack all of this side by side, the comments, the contract handling, the stadium decisions, it starts to paint a picture that is bigger than any single moment. This is where the conversation shifts from "that was a bad quote" or "that was a questionable decision" into something much more uncomfortable for Cowboys Nation. It becomes about whether the way this team is being run is actually holding it back. Think about the expectations around this franchise every single year. This is not a team that flies under the radar. This is not a team that gets patience from the media or from fans. The Dallas Cowboys are expected to compete at the highest level, period. And when you hear Jerry talk about wanting to be remembered as one of the greatest, about championships, about legacy, those are not small goals. Those are the biggest goals you can set. But then you look at the execution, and that is where the disconnect starts to hit. Take the free agency comments, saying the team was going to be more aggressive, that they were going to spend more, that they were going to make bigger moves. Fans hear that, and they believe it. They get excited. They start imagining what this roster could look like with real additions, and then reality hits, and it looks exactly like what the salary cap situation suggested all along. No major splash, no big swing, just a quieter approach that does not match the message that was sold. That is where frustration turns into fatigue, because it is not just about one off-season. It is about a pattern of building expectations and then not meeting them. And when that keeps happening, fans start to question everything. Not just the moves, but the leadership behind those moves. Not just the results, but the process that is supposed to lead to those results. And this is the core of the Jerry problem that people keep talking about. It is not simply that he is involved. It is how he is involved. It is the blend of old-school thinking in a league that keeps evolving. It is the willingness to speak boldly without always backing it up with action. It is the tendency to create unnecessary friction in situations that should be handled cleanly and efficiently. Over time, those things add up, and they start to show up in the only place that really matters, which is wins and losses when it counts the most. Now here is the tough question, and I want you to be real about it. Do you believe Jerry Jones is still helping this team reach a championship level? Or do you think he is becoming part of the reason they cannot get over the top? That is not an easy question, but it is one that more and more fans are starting to ask. Drop your answer in the comments, because this is the kind of conversation that defines where Cowboys Nation stands right now. And if you have been rocking with this all the way through, this is that final locker room moment. If you believe in this channel, if you want more honest, unfiltered Cowboys talk, now is the time to show it. Hit that like button, subscribe, and help push us toward that 17,000 goal. This is Cowboys Nation, and every single bit of support matters. Whether it is a like, a comment, or even a super thanks, you are helping keep this conversation alive and growing.